Everybody, it's Diesel from Imagine Your Goddess, and I'm bringing you a deck profile, one I haven't done in a long time. This is an update to the old Ethics Buster build, now fitting with the new cards. So, Ethic Buster, I don't know, 2.0, 3.0? Whatever. Anyway, just to get started, I'll say that I run Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn is still probably the best Beast Deity starter that there is. It's not situational in the case of being in a Beast Deity deck, so it's really nice to have, and that is my starter. I'll move into triggers. I run 4 heal. Anyone surprised by that? No? Yeah, move on? Okay, cool. I run 7 crits. I run 4 copies of the Beast Deity crit and 3 copies of Red Lightning. You could do it the other way, run 4 Red Lightning and 3 copies of the Beast Deity crit. I don't find myself needing to unflip damage all that much, so Red Lightning is just kind of in here as a backup. I'd rather have the consistency of the Beast Deity triggers just in case I need to damage flip them. But to each his own, I do not mind. I run 4 copies of Energy Girl. Energy Girl being stand trigger GB1. When she boosts an attack at the end of the battle, you put her into the deck and you stand a rear guard. Super useful. Very, very useful in the way this deck is currently set up. So, I like her. And having stand triggers in this deck is a viable option for further attacks. So. And I run 1 copy of a draw trigger. This draw trigger is the Beast Deity draw trigger. I just like switching up things. You could run another crit, but I personally just like to throw something in the works every once in a while that makes people wonder what's going on. This is one of those tricky things that I like to do. If you're not into it, run 8 crits. It'll be fine. Moving into grade 1s, I run 4 copies of Max Beat. Max Beat is the booster that whenever he stands, you can during your battle phase, when he stands, you can counterblast a Beast Deity to stand a Nova Grappler. He creates combos, he creates extra attacks. That's why you run 4. I run 4 copies of Solar Falcon. I like being able to guard rear guards with perfect guards, and like I said, I don't really find myself needing to unflip damage, so running an unflip perfect guard isn't really that useful to me. I'd rather have the consistency of having the Beast Deities in here, mostly because of some of my other grade 1 choices. I run 3 copies of Frogmaster. Frogmaster being the limit break enabler. This card does a lot of work. In some cases I might run 4 instead, but the way that I run it right now, I really like just being able to get Extreme working right away if I can't Legion, and just get everything turned on and functioning as quickly as possible. This deck does a lot of early guarding, so you don't want to wait until you're at 4 damage, so I like to get it moving as soon as I can. Hence why I use Frogmaster. And I run 3 copies of Extreme Battler Airshid. Most people have the most questions about why I run Airshid. It's not a Beast Deity, it doesn't add to the consistency, but the main thing that the deck needs to be consistent about is striding on time and striding often. So I run Airshid to achieve that goal. If you need to use him as a booster, use him as a booster. If you need to ride him, ride him. It's not that big a deal. But if you can hold on to him, it really helps the deck function at its highest level, because you can get to striding and you can keep your 11Ks to put in front of Rhyhorn if you have to. So it's a win-win situation in my mind. Moving into grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Beast Deity Hatred Chaos, the 12k attacker. He creates a column with Rhyhorn, he creates a column with anything. He's super super good, and I don't imagine running anything else. That being said, yes, if you happen to ride into Arashid, you can't use him, but you can't use him anyway because he's a grade 2 and Arashid's a grade 1. So, forget it. 4 copies of Brainy Papio. Brainy Papio, again, creates combos. I often get to swing with him twice a turn, especially if I get the Papio max beat situation going. There's nothing more fun than putting a couple triggers on him after your opponent's exhausted their guard, and they go, I forgot to deal with Brainy Papio, well, I guess I'll let him through, and then you stand him, attack again, and they just can't handle it. So, Brainy Papio, definitely worth running. Finally, I run 3 copies of Drago Twist. Now, Drago Twist, I don't actually get to use his effect as much as I'd like to. Often I end up riding him as my grade 2 ride, because I'd rather have the other 2 on board. But I will throw him down every once in a while. And what's great about Drago Twist is that your opponent wants him gone. He is a target. And there's nothing wrong with having a target in an aggressive deck where you can't guard much. When your opponent is trying to fling damage across the board. So, Drago Twist also, works with stand triggers, so you're able to hit some of the bigger creatures on board if you happen to flip a stand. He works off of the abilities of Catastrophe and Extreme. So, you could potentially flip a couple of damage down to severely limit your opponent's board presence. But even if you don't get to do that, just having it on board is usually enough to make your opponent want it gone instead of you. And that's always a good thing. Finally, going into grade 3s, I run 4 copies of Ethics Buster and 4 copies of Ethics Buster Extreme. You'll notice I have 2 empty sleeves there. A friend is borrowing the copies that I have right now. But I run 4 and 4. Ethics Buster and Ethics Buster Extreme, a lot of people like to throw 2 reverses in there instead. I find that I'm not using the Break Ride's ability or Reverse's ability. But if I wanted to be able to use one of those 2 in a pinch, I'd much prefer Ethics Buster's ability over Reverse's ability. Especially if I'm low on rear guards for the game. So, I think running 4 and 4 is fine. If you want to run 2 reverses, go ahead and do it. But I would say definitely run 4 Extreme, because Extreme's ability is great when you're not being able to stride. If for some reason your opponent's keeping your hand low, or you're just not hitting the cards to build a full field, Extreme with a Frog Master on the board does a lot more work than I think a reverse does. That's my personal opinion. Let's talk about the strides. The strides in this deck. First we have 4 copies of Ethics Buster Catastrophe. Sorry about that. You can only see 3 again. I have a friend borrowing 1. But Catastrophe gives you Extreme's ability plus a little extra if you have 2 or more face-up Catastrophes in the G zone. So, in a perfect world where I've hit a great field and I have everything set up, this is my first stride, and I flip 1 over, and then next turn I play another one of these and flip over a stride I don't care about. And the next turn, do another one of these and flip over a stride I don't care about. It's just really good at applying great amount of pressure on your opponent. Being able to push your 9Ks into 12Ks because of his +3 ability can help you achieve numbers that you weren't hitting before. It's just all around a good card. I like it a lot. I run 2 copies of Meteor Kaiser Victoplasma. Victoplasma is my out for a late game when I'm not hitting a lot of rear guards that I can play, or if my opponent's been destroying my rear guards over and over again. I also will use it if my opponent has a small hand and I know that they have like a perfect guard and another card, because often they'll try to save it that last bit for the end, and so being able to have a restanding Vanguard is more important than being able to attack an extra time. I run one copy of Medio Kaiser Tribrute. To be honest, I haven't really used Tribrute's effect. I'm not entirely sure whether or not I'd keep him in the long run, but one of the things I do like having him there for is, same thing as Drago Twist, is that it kind of gives an illusion that your opponent is not safe, and that illusion is enough to set them off balance. So, and if you can get his effect off, it is a very nice effect, being able to retire things and draw cards, I think, also. Yeah. It's definitely worthwhile. I like it. Finally, I run one copy of Vic 10. Vic 10 is one of those situations where it's early turn 3, my opponent, or for some reason, has kept my board mostly clear, and all I have is a single column and the Vanguard. I will often stride into Vic 10 first to give myself just that extra attack, just to make sure I'm doing 3 attacks, or force them to block Vic 10, which is also always helpful. This deck doesn't require a lot of thought until you hit the stride area, and then you've got to kind of be on board with where your opponent's hand is at. Because if their hand is real low and your field is real good, Catastrophe's great. If their hand's real low and your field so-so, Victoplasma takes precedence. If your deck is real low and you know you've got 4 stand triggers sitting in it, go ahead and ride Tribrute. Or if you have an Energy Girl in your hand and you're going to stand something anyway, ride Tribrute and get that work done. And then Vic 10, like I said, is great for an early turn 3 change if your field's not hitting high. So just judge where your opponent's hand is. Read the room and figure out what you need to do. This is the way I like to play it. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at the deck profile. If you have any questions or any comments, leave them below. Make sure to like and subscribe. It's been nice being able to do a deck profile that you guys can watch. I hope to do more in the future, but you guys have already heard through various things why I don't do deck profiles very often. So we'll just play it by ear. Talk to you guys soon.